I know you're both a pair of losers. All the Paul family suck.
Imagine seeing that. Can you imagine being involved in that area? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine those being your friends? You can't even imagine, you know, the trauma, the mental trauma that would, how that would affect anybody. Even people passing the other way.
Yeah, man, I feel for that. I'm hoping everybody fame is good, and I'm hoping, you know, speedy recovery. That's all I gotta say, man. I gotta do better.
Okay, so Tyson Fury just went completely off on Jake Paul after this whole mess with Anthony Joshua's car crash. The Gypsy King is not playing games here, calling out Jake and his entire crew for being completely reckless and showing zero respect when it matters most. He's making it crystal clear that real-life situations are way more serious than chasing clout or staging fights. What Fury's saying hits different because he's talking about basic human decency and taking responsibility for your actions.
They are not your enemies. They are your brothers and sisters under God. We all came from Adam and Eve. In the beginning, everybody on earth. Remember that. Spread love, not hate.
The heavyweight champion is fuming after AJ's nightmare accident that took the lives of two people who meant everything to Joshua. Fury's going straight at Jake Paul and that whole family circus for how they handled this situation. While he's celebrating that Joshua made it through alive and showing respect for his strength, Fury's not holding back about how disgusting it is when people care more about going viral than actual human lives. His message lands harder than any punch because he's calling out this whole culture where being famous somehow matters more than being a decent person. Gerald Miller can barely keep it together talking about what happened to Anthony Joshua, and you can see this whole thing has really gotten to him. Losing two of your closest people in something this horrific while Gerald's talking about how this puts everything in perspective compared to Jake Paul's circus act. He's reminding everyone that when people you care about are gone forever, all this boxing drama and internet nonsense becomes completely meaningless.
You don't know what other people are going through. And even though AJ, you know, we're not on the best terms, man, I feel for this brother, man. Because it could have been my family, could have been my friends. And, you know, I feel like, man, it's mentally, like, kind of draining looking at this stuff all day online. And like I said, I didn't really see nothing too graphic until this morning. Was like, now I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in my life, man. I've seen dead bodies before and all that.
Joe Rogan's asking the tough questions about where Anthony Joshua stands right now and whether he'll ever be the same after going through this. Nobody really knows how someone bounces back from trauma like this, especially when Jake Paul's fingerprints are all over the situation that led up to it. Rogan's pointing out that we're not just talking about another celebrity story here, we're watching someone deal with survival and loss at the same time.
Happened to him when he survived, right? Like, did he hit his head? Did he hit his neck? Like, what is he okay? Like, is he 100%, or is he always gonna be a little fucked from that?
Johnny Nelson gets real about how this accident shows just how quickly everything can fall apart for anyone. When you lose people close to you, and some YouTubers' antics played a part in the mess, it changes your whole perspective on what actually matters. Nelson's telling people to step back from all the fight talk and beef, and remember that we're dealing with actual human beings who are hurting right now.
It's just sad. It just makes you realize how valuable life is, and how things can change in a heartbeat. So when we talk about fights and we talk about beefs, and you know, these things are just nothing when it comes to real life and losing your life. So it was a sad thing to hear, a sad thing to see. God knows how it'll affect those that saw it mentally, emotionally. But you've got to think about these two men who were somebody's child, someone's brother, and that's what you've got to think about, those people that have lost their lives.
The physical trauma Anthony Joshua went through in that crash is something most people can't even imagine surviving. His body took a beating that goes way beyond anything that happens in a boxing ring, and somehow he's still here while two of his best friends aren't. The whole situation with Jake Paul's involvement just makes it worse because it shows how people's reckless behavior can have consequences nobody saw coming.
It's true. such a severe car accident there. Like, all right, he's lucky enough to still be alive, but fuck me, his body must be going through a lot right there. This is...
Eddie Hearn knows that right now the priority has to be making sure Anthony Joshua and everyone affected by this tragedy gets the help they need. With two families grieving and all the questions about Jake Paul's role in everything, Hearn's focusing on what actually matters, which is proper medical care and emotional support. All the business side and promotional stuff takes a back seat when you're dealing with real trauma and loss.
Dealing with the inquiries and the media, and you can imagine how many people are trying to find out.
The relief everyone feels knowing Anthony Joshua survived something that could have easily killed him is overwhelming. Two of the people closest to him didn't make it out, which makes AJ's survival feel like a miracle and a tragedy at the same time. When you contrast this real life or death situation with Jake Paul's social media games, it shows just how backwards our priorities have become. This whole thing should make everyone think twice about what's actually worth getting upset about.
God bless you, AJ. You're one lucky lad. God bless you, my lad. Glad you're alive again. Shocked me, it has. Terrible.
Chris Eubank Jr. wraps up his thoughts by telling everyone to stay safe and try to find some peace in the new year, which says everything about how this accident has affected the whole boxing world. Joshua surviving when two of his best friends died shows how random and cruel life can be outside of any sport. Eubank Jr. doesn't need to spell out his feelings about Jake Paul's involvement, because everyone can read between the lines about how disgusting it is to be reckless with other people's lives. The fact that Anthony Joshua, someone known around the world, almost became another casualty in this accident really drives home how serious the whole situation is. Two people who meant everything to him are gone, and his own survival feels like pure luck more than anything else. Jake Paul's history of stirring up drama and being irresponsible just makes the whole thing feel even more senseless, because it shows how internet fame can lead to real-world consequences that destroy lives.
2 weeks ago, this guy's in front of the whole world. Netflix, millions of dollars, breaks Jake Paul's jaw in 2 places, decides to go back to Nigeria, almost dies. 2 of his closest friends pass away in the accident. You never know what days your last.
Looking back at everything that led up to Anthony Joshua's accident, you can see how Jake Paul's reckless behavior created a pattern that eventually contributed to this tragedy. While people were focused on potential fights and Paul's latest antics, the real story was about how his actions affect real people in serious ways. The contrast between Joshua's character and Paul's attention-seeking shows the difference between someone who understands responsibility and someone who doesn't care about consequences until it's too late.
It's just sad. It just makes you realise how valuable life is and how things can change in a heartbeat. So when we talk about fights and we talk about beefs and these things are just nothing when it comes to real life and losing a life. So it was a sad thing to hear, a sad thing to see. God knows how it'll affect those that saw it mentally, emotionally. But you've got to think about these 2 men who were somebody's child, someone's brother, and that's what you've got to think about, those people that have lost their lives.
Joe Rogan's reaction really captures how close Anthony Joshua came to not making it out of that accident alive. Knowing that 2 of his closest friends died in the same crash makes Joshua's survival feel both incredibly lucky and devastatingly sad at the same time. The whole situation with Jake Paul's involvement just adds another layer of anger, because it represents everything wrong with putting fame over basic human decency.
Some very interesting and germane points you make there in this moment, Raheem. That I think what I've noticed, that obviously there were a kind of panoply of opinions about him fighting Jake Paul to take it back a week and a half. I mean, I was critical of that fight being signed, first of all, because I worried about the dangers for Jake Paul. He got his jaw broken at the end of the day, and kind of used the scars as a flag in his new moon, delusionally optimistic in his words, as he is about these things. So Anthony Joshua went to America a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, played the role which he needed to play, was very classy throughout.
The update on Anthony Joshua's condition and the loss of 2 people from his inner circle shows how this accident goes way beyond sports headlines. These weren't just random people, they were part of AJ's family, which makes their deaths even more heartbreaking. Jake Paul's role in creating the circumstances that led to this tragedy just proves that some people will do anything for attention without thinking about who gets hurt along the way.
I mean, that's bonkers. Thank God he didn't have a seatbelt on. I never say that. Thank God he didn't have a fucking seatbelt on, because if he did,
there's no way
he would be dead.
There's
Probably,
no way.
or fucking severely.
Alexander Usyk's response shows the respect and solidarity that exists in the boxing community when real tragedy strikes. He understands that 2 of Joshua's team members and close friends are gone forever, and that AJ now has to deal with surviving something that killed people he cared about. Usyk's message of support represents the human side of boxing that gets forgotten when people like Jake Paul turn everything into content for social media.
Anthony Joshua injured in car accident. 2 people who I believe were with Anthony Joshua were friends of his have tragically passed away. Before I carry on reading the article, the 2 people who have tragically passed, my condolences is all I can say to their friends and families. We'll definitely offer up some prayers for them.
The breaking news coverage makes it clear that Anthony Joshua's SUV hitting a stationary truck was a serious accident that changed multiple lives forever. 2 of the people closest to him died, and somehow he survived. But Jake Paul's involvement in the events leading up to this crash adds a whole other dimension to the story. This isn't just another celebrity accident. It's a reminder that reckless behavior and chasing drama can lead to consequences that destroy families.
Usyk said, "This is an unbelievable loss. Sinna and Latif are 2 incredible people who were not only part of AJ's team, but also friends. My sincere condolences to their families, loved ones, and everyone who knew them. Anthony Joshua, wishing you a speedy recovery. Stay strong."
What happened to Anthony Joshua should be a wake-up call for everyone about how quickly life can change and how the people we care about can be taken away without warning. Jake Paul and his family's behavior throughout all of this shows a complete lack of understanding about responsibility and consequences. The boxing community and fans are realizing that all the promotional hype and internet beef means absolutely nothing when real people are dead and others are fighting to recover from trauma that will stay with them forever.
Was SUV struck the stationary truck. So I just want to give you guys the breaking news. Unfortunately, Anthony Joshua was involved in a car accident in Nigeria. Prayers to Anthony Joshua and his